Hello and welcome to the Bee Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast. I have somebody else from Barcelona that because I had someone from Barcelona 3 days ago, and I've got another Barcelonian. Can you say what do you say? I'm going to introduce you first before I just get too familiar. But Darragh McKay, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And I think I probably we were chatting pre-show, and then I always come on and I almost forget to introduce in a formal manner, but nothing's formal on this show, so it's whatever
That's
goes,
okay.
whatever flows. But yeah, quickly, is it Barcelonian? Like what do you like we call people in Australia,
Oof.
Australians, Melburnians. I'm from Melbourne.
They usually go by Catalonian, which is kind of
Yeah.
like the grander Catalonia
Yeah.
region. I've never heard of anyone as a Barcelonian anyway. But as
Just
you can probably tell, that's not where I'm originally from. So
no. Yeah, where are you originally from?
I'm from Ireland, just outside of
Yeah.
Dublin. Yeah,
That's all very cool. I've
I've been
never
in
been.
Barcelona for almost 2 years now. So
Oh, have you? Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, it's
mhm.
9 a.m. Tuesday. I have
That's it.
dreams to get to Ireland at some point one day as well. I'd love to get there, and it sounds like a beautiful country as well. But
It
Darragh, like I
is.
said, welcome to the show, and I'm pretty excited to be chatting. Well, I'm very excited to be chatting with you. You're the founder and CEO of Noloco and another COVID business baby. There's a real
Great.
theme coming through the many interviews I've done, over 250 now with, founders, CEOs at the top of their game like yourself and leaders. And I think I need to do over the break, have a look at how many of the leaders and founders I've spoken to that started their business in COVID. So your business was established in 2021, so 1 year into COVID. Can't wait to hear
Exactly right.
how you came about the business, but essentially Noloco, you build internal tools and customer portals from your clients' existing data, and it's fast. You're an ex
Mhm.
software engineer, and you blend deep product with pragmatic execution, writing about scaling SaaS, no code development. I'm really keen to understand this whole no code piece. Forgive me, and not being too au fait with it all, and AI accelerated product building. But
Mhm.
the real thing that got me going was when you responded to my question when picking in for the pod, which was what's one unique insight or lived experience when it comes to life leadership and or business. And we had a bit of email back and forth as well, but you said there's no such thing as done. Most people say done
Yeah.
is better than perfect, but in truth, you're never done. Gosh, I agree with that. Everything is constantly evolving. Customer needs, technology, the market, your own goals. So instead of chasing some final version of done, I found more success in focusing on momentum, iteration, and quick feedback loops. Tell
That's
us
exactly
about
right. Yeah.
tell us it all, because I'm sure this will also inform a lot about your business and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of I I guess it comes from my grounding in software engineering, where you pick up a ticket that describes a feature, and you work on that until it's quote unquote done. But it's only the first version of done. In truth, you're going to have to refine that, improve it, get feedback on it from customers or from your PM or your designer, and then iterate on it forever. But yeah, I think it applies so much more beyond just software engineering. It's whether it's hiring, whether it's team building, whether it's how your marketing plan, your ad plan, or even just designing your house, or like furnishing your house. Like you do need to draw a line in the sand where you kind of say, I am now ready to present this to the world. That's what, like, done is better than perfect, but at the same time, you're never done. You're always iterating. You're always kind of most people are always trying to figure out, how can I make this better? How can I make it more comfortable? How can I make it easier to understand? So there's always way to improve, I think. So for people striving to reach a perfect state, they struggle to maybe reach a done state. But even then, you just have to understand that I think it's never done. And once you kind of understand that, you realize, like, I can be proud of this and know that I need to iterate on it. I
Yeah.
think some people forget that.
And is that something you've always believed in? Like, is that something that you were, grown, like it was something that was part of your childhood? Like, how did you come to this realization, this awareness around this notion of done? And there's
It's a
no
really
such
good
thing.
question. And I don't know when I kind of clarified in my mind. I think it really became clear when I started working with other people in software in product building. Pretty when I started hiring my own team, it maybe it came a little bit more natural to me that I would, publish or share what I was working on sooner than others. And I kind of realized that they were trying to protect themselves by waiting for their definition of done, which is often like close to perfect, even if it's not perfect.
Yeah.
And whereas I would be kind of sooner to get feedback on something, sooner to kind of share it with others, show it off, because I would be proud of it, even if I know, like, because it would be better with their feedback too, right? So
Yeah.
whether you're kind of building, like I said, a website for a friend, or you're building, an ad campaign or a marketing post or whatever it is, like I'm always kind of keen to get feedback as soon as possible, share it with people as soon as possible. And I suspect that like really solidified for me when I started Noloco 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, right. So tell us a bit about Noloco and how you came about founding it in 2021, because you said you've been in Barcelona for 2 years. So did
That's
you
right. Yeah.
did you start it in Ireland? Where did this idea originate from? Yeah, tell us that.
Yeah. So, yeah, as you said, it started during COVID. Like a lot of people, I had a lot of spare time, yeah, after my 9 to 5. It wasn't even a 9 to 5. I was in a fast moving startup at the time, but all the same, the days were long and I hadn't got a lot more to do. So Um, I started like chatting with one of my friends every week about different things we were facing, different insights we were kind of seeing in the industry. We were both in kind of product development. He was a PM, I was a software engineer. And we kind of came up with this concept of making it easier for people to build web apps and kind of software without needing to know how to code. And it was like a bit of a movement starting online at the time, with people doing that in the same way that I had a lot of spare time. There was a lot of other people looking to build communities, looking to build kind of side hustles online over COVID. So that it was kind of a growing community of this like no code tools. So we put our kind of heads together. We did a few customer interviews and to kind of understand like what is it that people are looking for, and we ended up landing on this idea of being able to build custom software without code, um, specifically, custom web apps for building a business. We kind of started thinking about it like a startup in the box idea. And we pursued that, the two of us, for maybe 6 months. Now we started getting good traction. We started getting some customers. We started getting some investors. But the truth was, we realized we'd bitten off way much more than we could chew. In many respects, we were like 4 or 5 years early compared to like
Yeah.
what Lovable and Bolt now do. So at that moment, after like a objectively quite successful product hunt launch, if you're not familiar with product hunt, it's like a website where you post your idea and people upvote it basically to say, hey, I like this idea, and they
What's it
comment for
called?
feedback.
Product hunt or product launch?
hmm Product hunt, yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
So we launched on that on a Thursday, or no, sorry, it was a Wednesday. We came number 2 product of the day with over like 800 upvotes, and it was all relatively successful on paper. But we looked at the numbers, we looked at how people were using the product and how people were using NoLoco, and we realized that actually we had a long way to go before there was something usable here, something we could really, really sell. Because at the time we were building these apps for our customers ourselves, whereas the goal was to let them do it. So we kind of looked at what was working really well, and we realized that people who were trying to build their own apps for their own team, to kind of move faster within their own team, doing things like project management or client portals or managing client data, they were the ones who were kind of seeing the most success out of the big bunch of people that were trying to do everything. So we kind of niched down on this, and this is again kind of coming back to what I described about like you're never done, right? Like we
No.
thought we had something great, and then realized we needed to iterate on it. So yeah, about 2 days after the really successful launch, we decided actually no, we need to focus on something slightly different. We focused in on client portals and kind of project management type solutions, and specifically building internal tools for teams that are growing fast and have to like changing processes all the time. And that's kind of what we've been doing ever since. So that was summer of 2021, and now 4.5 years later, here we are, and we're focused on building custom apps without code. And it's great. We've got customers all over the world now who have built really powerful systems and processes to make their business move faster, make it easier to train employees, make it less difficult to make mistakes. they move faster, they grow faster, and they get the tools they actually want to use rather than, being forced to kind of shoehorn their
Oh,
processes into something off the shelf. So that's kind of
yeah.
the promise we go with.
I'm still getting my head around this no code piece, right? Like the difference between a code is there like, I mean, obviously there's a difference between a code platform and a no code platform. Forgive me,
Mhm.
but does platform, does that allow more flexibility, more adaptability, being able to
Yeah,
be more bespoke for depending on the client and what their needs are versus a code? Is that right?
exactly.
Oh, there you
Well, yeah,
go.
so the easiest way to think about it is if you've ever used something like Squarespace or Webflow or Wix to build a website, you're writing there's code somewhere that you're shaping and you're doing it through like a point drag and drop builder. So our solution is very similar, but for building kind of more functional apps rather than your kind of static website. So the
Ah,
complexity goes up a little bit, but that's kind of the closest parallel. And the alternative is hiring software engineers to kind of build something yourself, which yes, you get way more control, but time, budget, and complexity just
mm,
skyrocket. So this
very
way
cool.
you as a again, I don't like the words no code and I don't like the words non-technical, but they're what the industry have landed on. So non-technical, traditionally non-technical, i.e. non-software engineers can build what they need themselves,
Yeah.
and by that I mean, operations managers, business owners, marketing managers, any average role, smart people, but not software
Yeah.
engineers.
Yeah. And so you launched this business and then 2 days later you were like, oh, we need to pivot. Like, talk
Yes.
me through that because that's pretty crazy, like wild in terms of like you launch it and then all of a sudden 2 days later you're pivoting. Was it more a behind the scenes pivot or an inside pivot that the external wouldn't necessarily notice, or did you just do a full 360 or 720, if you like, in terms of like, yeah, what was going through your minds at the time?
Yeah, thankfully it wasn't like a full start again and go from there. It was mostly about positioning and the kind of features we prioritize within the product. So, um, I think the funny thing about like for people who haven't launched a business yet or who haven't or who are dreaming of launching a business, they always could think of this like the launch day as the day the whole world knows about them, right? But I think we can all think back of like, can anyone name when Google launched? Can anyone name when
No.
Notion launched? Like, no, right? Like they probably did launch to 1,000 people, and that was amazing for them at the time. But the grander world has no idea that they exist. So yeah, sure, there was about 500 to 1,000 people who knew about us at that time, but their interaction with us showed that there's a bigger opportunity here for a lot more people. So on the outside to them, maybe we looked like a completely different product, but to all the new people, we were just something better, maybe something closer aligned to what they wanted. So yeah, we continued with all the kind of software that we had built, and we were able to kind of put it in a new direction with a new focus and just a new message to help people understand what we do best.
Yeah, and I love that because it's like the world we're in now, it is constantly evolving, it's rapidly changing. Like, what was yesterday, like I mean, the fact you're even in the past, I'm in the future and we're right now in the present.
100%.
Like I could tell you what's happening in the future right now. You could tell me what's happening in the past, but
For
your
sure.
past is
Yeah.
probably different to the past that I had this morning on a Tuesday morning. Do you know what I mean? Like it's kind
100%.
of bizarre,
I
like
do.
that. But
Yeah.
so there's this real. I think the more that we are evolving, testing, learning, experimenting, all of that, nothing's staying static anymore. Nothing's staying
Exactly. Yeah.
rigid. It's very non-linear. And like you say, I think quite often, I love your thoughts on this, we get so caught up in what's everyone going to think. And, you think about social channels and everything else. And like, like that big launch you say, and then it's like, no one's really actually watching. Like,
Unfortunately, nobody's watching. Yeah, and it would be great if everybody
here we
made the
are
leap, but
thinking,
no. But it means you get a second chance or a fifth chance and a 20th chance, right? Because
yeah,
you should be constantly launching, constantly evolving how you describe yourself, how you kind of present yourself. And I'm sure even in your own business, B, you've changed how you present yourself, your message, the podcast even time and time again because you kind of you hear
yeah,
you
changes all
realize
the
something
time.
new or you did something one time and you go, oh, that really resonated.
Yeah.
So it's no different, right?
Do you know what else I love about it? And again, I love your thoughts on this, is that you are, for me in a way, it's keeping you really authentic as a leader, founder, but also as a business. And I don't know what you think about this, but like when I think about like the competition, or I think about other people in your space or whatever, I think when you're adapting, evolving, reshaping, shaping, what I like to call it, it's when they're zigging, you're zagging type thing, right? So like there's just this ability to always kind of stay ahead without staying static for too long. That people like, I don't know. I just think there's something really interesting in that space as well, because you constantly, you're moving, but you're being strategic about it. But I'm like, that's my formless piece in terms of I'm never going to just stay still and sit
Yeah.
still. And you're totally right. Like, one day I might
Yeah.
come out with how, like, it's always leads back to my purpose and my strategy, but how I articulate it or how I communicate it can often be quite different in terms of just what's happening at
100%.
the very given
And
time.
I think it's more complicated when you've got like employees who've bought into your idea and your kind of direction. So as you kind of said, you've got to make sure it ties back to the mission and
Yeah,
how you present, like explain, like, okay, we're making this shift, but the underlying mission is still the same thing. We're just kind of coming at
yeah,
it from a slightly different angle. And you got to make sure that they're bought in to the mission, not the kind of existing solution or the existing form of what you're in.
yeah,
You want to make sure that they're bought into the idea behind it rather than like what it currently is today. Because
yeah.
you've brought them on to make it better at the end of the day. So that should be kind of
What's the most challenging thing you find as being a founder of your own business, of your own startup?
That's a great question. So interestingly, like I started as the CTO, and then 2.5 years ago, my CEO decided to bow out. So I had to make the switch between CTO to CEO, and for me, that was a massive change in how I measure my own kind of productivity. As I kind of alluded to in the beginning, as a software engineer, as CTO at a small startup, a customer reports an issue or they ask for a new feature, we add it to the kind of project management system, you pick that ticket up, you do it, it takes a day, you tell the customers it's out there, they clap, you feel great, whereas as a CEO, your duties are totally different. Like it might be hiring people, which might just include, reviewing countless CVs or outreaching on LinkedIn, or it might be prospecting to, potential clients, which includes sending emails that never ever get opened, so the kind of feedback loop of how well you're doing and kind of that, yeah, the kind of how good the outcome is just weeks longer compared to the kind of engineering feedback loop. So that has been a big adjustment for me in terms of like how I measure my productivity. And I guess unfortunately, like I probably do measure my kind of contentness alongside that at the same time. So it took me a couple of months to maybe a year to really wrap my head around how different the two were.
Yeah.
And then even now, it's still like how I manage my day. Like it's so easy to just kind of get lost in the weeds, um, and maybe working on a little admin thing that's not actually moving the business forward. So I try to make sure I don't do that. But then at the end of the day, maybe that is just my job. Maybe my job is now making sure the rest of my team are moving quickly, and I'm just kind of the conductor behind it
Yeah,
rather
it's
than
totally,
the
yeah,
one driving.
you totally are. You're totally the conductor. It's sometimes it's so lonely at the top, and it's also like some days it's so
Mhm.
not rewarding. Like you're just putting out. You probably have those days where you're just putting out spot fires, and then you were in this
Exactly.
specialist role previously, and you were
Exactly.
feeling
Yeah.
like you're making a difference. So, and you could see tangibly what you were doing. Whereas being in
Yeah.
that CEO role, you're across everything. You're responsible for everything. One day, everyone
Yeah.
loves you. The next day, they don't like you because you've had to make a decision about something in the business, or you've pissed
Unfortunately.
someone
Yeah.
off, excuse my language, but you know what I mean? Like it's
Hmm.
it's it's complex. And so
Yeah.
then it's like, coming always back to the purpose and the mission, right? And putting those values into action. I think it's, yeah, it can be non-rewarding. So for me, it's like, how do you then find those moments where you are motivated intrinsically? Like, how do you get into your flow states, and so that you get the creativity and the innovative juices flowing? Because if you're just continuously doing all the standard CEO stuff, that's when sometimes the reward doesn't feel like it's you kind of like, oh,
Expected.
like do you know what I mean? Like, do you ever
Yeah,
get like that? Do you ever
I
like,
absolutely do.
yeah,
Yeah, I do. Like, there'll be kind of slower Fridays where I'll just kind of focus on some engineering tasks because it's ultimately just what I love. I do love building the business. I do love,
yeah,
the people I've built around me. But at the end of the day, I get so much joy out of just coming and completing an engineering task, a little software
yeah,
engineering task. Probably in the same way, someone who's good at like sales who ended up being a CEO likes just, talking to the first customer, that sort of way. For me, I just get a lot of joy out of it and it just makes it kind of all much more enjoyable, even if it's like an hour a week. So I
mm,
do try and still do that sort of thing even if it's like Saturday mornings or something, just to kind of a bit
yeah,
quiet, I put my headphones on and make sure
yeah.
I get something productive done to wrap out the week. Even if it's not the real measure of productivity for me as a CEO, I feel good about it.
Yeah, and being the CEO, you also have then more control in terms of like as your own founder and
Exactly.
startup scaling of the business. Tell me, No Loco, how did you come about the name No Loco? Like where did is that kind of is Loco something to do with code and no code? Like is that kind of or
Great question.
yeah,
So like yeah, we as most businesses probably end up doing, we had like a big Google Doc with just probably 100 names in there. But at some point so we're kind of in the no code space. And there's like an adjacent space called the low code space, which is like slightly targeted at engineers who are writing a little bit of code, but but it's still assisted by a platform like ours. So I kind of smashed those two together and we got no low code, which is like no/low code kind of.
oh, I love
Um,
it. It's yeah, I thought it
but
kind
the
of
minute I
was
moved to Spain, everyone was like, that means not crazy in Spanish. And I was like, yes, 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 I do. I mean, it doesn't really. I mean, no obviously means no, and crazy. Loco is crazy. So, you wouldn't ever use it in a word in a sentence, but technically speaking, it does mean not crazy in Spanish, which I quite enjoy as well, because like I guess at some point our platform helps you go not crazy about your processes
yeah,
and
it's
whatever. We
very
haven't really leaned into that much, but I can
me
see it
too.
happening in an
Yeah.
upcoming
Yeah,
marketing campaign.
you absolutely do. I mean, my background's advertising communications. I can already see
Yeah,
how that could work together. And what was
exactly.
your
Yeah.
move to Barcelona then? Was that like a life choice or was that a business
Yeah,
choice?
a bit of both, but ultimately a life choice first. So, we'd grown so as you mentioned, we started the company in Dublin. It was during COVID, so we were remote, by nature. We
I'm gonna
didn't
ask you
really have
that.
a choice. So we hired people all over Ireland. We had a team of 8 or 9 at one point, mostly spread around Ireland, mostly near Dublin. But then again, a lot of people moved away from cities
Mm.
during COVID. So, by the end of kind of 2022, a handful of our team had moved out of the city. So we never really had an office in Dublin itself. Um, at that point, then my co-founder had left, and I was kind of a little bit more free, I suppose, and kind of just looking to, I don't know, looking for a change in my personal life as well. Me and my partner decided to move to Barcelona. Um, it was kind of, I did have a business. I couldn't go too far. You're in Australia. I'm sure every second person you meet is probably Irish out there. A lot of my friends and
Yeah,
stuff have
a
emigrated
lot in
either to
our
Australia or
woods, a lot
Canada.
where I live. Yeah. I
Yeah.
actually bumped into someone earlier when I was walking my dog Mally Bob, and yeah,
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of us everywhere, but particularly Australia and Canada and the likes. And for me that just wouldn't have worked time zone
mm,
wise with the team. So
yeah,
yeah, I really just wanted to prioritize a place that had a slightly better lifestyle, I suppose. Weather is a big thing. Ireland is just dark in the winter and kind of it's amazing during the summer, but it also just rains a lot. So,
yeah,
yeah, just prioritize something slightly different. But it also opened up massive opportunities for the team then because it gave me the opportunity to establish a bit of a hub here. So now we've got 10 employees in Barcelona as well. We've opened an office here. We've It's a really interesting market in terms of hiring for tech, in my opinion because Dublin is this incredibly weird mix of companies where you've got a load of startups like us, but you also have all of the tech company HQs are there because of tax reasons. So
yeah,
we've got, Microsoft, Facebook, Twitter, Stripe, uh, Salesforce, like HubSpot, all of the massive companies are there and they pay incredibly well and they have very, very fine, comfortable jobs. So to attract good talent from those companies, you've got to really kind of sell it or compete on salary, which, it's challenging as an early stage
Yeah.
startup. So Barcelona has great weather, great beaches. So there's a lot of people like me who are moving there. And it doesn't have as many tech companies. It's growing, which is really cool as well, but it's certainly like maybe 20 years behind in terms of the prevalence of big tech companies. So it's a lot easier to hire as well. You get some great people with some really ambitious goals.
No, it's emerging, right? It's like an emerging tech hub. It's an emerging area. Is that what?
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very cool.
100%.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you mentioned lifestyle and as a founder and again, CEO as well, like nothing's, there's no such thing as done. So there's always stuff that you're doing. There's always something you're thinking about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You called out lifestyle. Has that allowed you, have you noticed a difference in yourself in terms of having that ability to switch off, access that active recovery where you do, you know, step away so that you can get the fresh perspective, subtracting from the mind, reducing that cognitive load, rest and reset. Have you noticed that you're able to do that more in a place like Barcelona than what you were in Dublin? Or like, is that kind of something that yeah, I'm intrigued by.
Yeah, it wasn't as obvious to me that that would be the case. In particular because, I'm one time zone ahead of my Irish team now, so and then one time zone away from where a lot of our customers are, which are the US. So I definitely work like later in the day here, but for me, the main way I kind of take a break from work is like through running or through to the gym. So I
Yeah,
try to run 3 to 4 times a week. And while that's very easy to do in Ireland, it's certainly a challenge when it's much cooler in the winter and much rainier all year round. Whereas at least in Barcelona, I can step outside. I think I've ran twice in the rain here in the last maybe 18 months. Whereas in Ireland, it's kind of every other week you have a bit very heavy rain session. And you know yourself, as much as you want to take a break from work, if it's slashing rain outside and that's where you plan to be for the next hour, it's not as enjoyable as say just
yeah,
stepping out into
totally.
nicer weather. So th things like that have made it like yeah, like on the surface quite a little bit easier, quite a little bit more approachable from there. There's also a huge network of, international travelers like myself, as well as locals at things like run clubs and things. And for me, they've been a great way to meet people as well as kind of get that exercise. And then also just meet people that aren't in tech and that aren't talking software engineering all day. You meet people in different industries that
Yeah,
actually have different
I think it's
perspectives
cool.
on things, and that's
Yeah,
been super helpful as well.
yeah. Tell us a
So, and
little bit about,
Dublin has a bit of that, but
sorry,
also,
say that again.
I was like, Dublin has a lot of that too, because it's
Yeah,
also a big cultural melting pot. But
yeah.
it's just a little bit more approachable here in Barcelona. A lot of choice and a lot of people like myself.
Yeah, right. And so tell us, what are you seeing as like, kind of with the year wrapping up? It's been a pretty big year in 2025 in terms of just
Absolutely.
rapidly changing. Like if we think about like the start of the year and even where we were with AI, even and to now,
Hmm.
and not forgetting what's been happening on the political stage and everything else, and from a global perspective, what are you seeing as the next big trends from a tech perspective, and anything else you'd like to share as we're heading into 2026? Like, do you have any predictions?
Oh, that's a good question. For us, like we're kind of very much focused on bringing AI to our customers, which I think is it's really difficult to remember that the average company hasn't really made any significant changes to their day to day with AI. It's all over my Twitter, it's all over my Reddit. Everybody's talking about it, but like the average small medium sized business, it hasn't made like a day to day impact
Yeah,
on them themselves. So that's I think one thing I really like about our mission is like that. Um, we target small, medium-sized businesses specifically and make it easier for them to adopt AI as well as like build things with AI, which is something that the kind of larger market isn't thinking about too much. But I think as a trend that's going to continue, like kind of globally, there'll be much more adoption of this stuff in regular people's kind of day-to-day life outside of the kind of tech bubble, outside of the tech world. We've already kind of seen it become more prevalent on like your phone and things, but I think more and more business tools will kind of adopt it, and it should just be a bit easier for people to reduce the kind of menial work that they're doing with some AI processes and so on, and hopefully means they can free up themselves to do better work themselves
Yeah.
or less work themselves. I don't know,
Yeah.
more meaningful work perhaps.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not not a massively hot take, but I can see that kind of trend continuing, I think.
Yeah. I'd like to think it also help. It also, like when you iterate with it and like, I mean, not just like from a generative perspective, but also like setting up processes, like it just wants to add, add, add. I don't know if you've noticed that. And it's just like, just stop. Like, actually, I don't want you adding more to this. I want you to make this more simpler for me.
Yeah.
And I really would like to think that in heading into next year and next year that it calms down a bit the buzz in terms of like
Mm,
this loading up of just like because everyone is quite overloaded because we can be
absolutely.
on 24/7, and so for
Yeah.
me it's like how do we subtract that load, and how does an AI enable it versus also adding another layer on top of what we're wanting to ultimately use it for so that we can get back to being our most innovative, our most creative, accessing our most human potential within us. I think there's
Yeah.
something really interesting in that space as well that we want to get into. I wouldn't say back to because it's just a new way, it's a new form. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally understand. There's news each week about new ways to do things, new models that you should be switching to every 2 weeks. And I think the kind of cognitive load of that is like a lot of people are just kind of starting to shut it out. Whereas that's not the best case scenario either. I think people should be keeping an eye on what they can be adopting to their needs to kind of make their processes better at work or at home, but at the same time not being overwhelmed by all of this.
Yeah,
So I don't know how that'll happen. I'd like to think the form factor of it all will just get a little bit better, a little bit integrated,
yeah,
while keeping things like privacy and data, security at heart. But we'll see about that. I'm not an expert there, but I think as it gets embedded in more things like in your phones and things like that, maybe it'll just be a little bit easier to do certain things without having to set up countless processes and countless workflows that kind of are sellotaped together.
yeah,
But I
totally.
don't know. I don't know.
Be very
So
interesting.
much, as you said, so much change in the last 12 months. I find it very hard to make predictions about the next 12, right? I think
Yeah.
not that would be wrong, but maybe would be off by a couple order of magnitudes
Well,
in
it's just
maybe
going
both
to change.
directions.
Yeah. It's like what you were talking about before. Like, it's just going to keep changing. Two final questions for you.
Absolutely.
You're
Yes.
CEO of Noloco. You're doing your end of year wrap up for your team.
Mhm.
What is
Yeah.
your final words to them with regards to I'm playing with this one a little bit in my head, but what's your like what are you leaving with them in terms of like coming back to your purpose and your mission, and I guess where No Loco goes next? What would be something that you would be saying to them without giving away all your secrets?
Yeah, for sure. Look, yeah, it's been an interesting year for us. A lot of highs, a lot of lows, as a lot of things have changed. But I think, our mission is to help small, medium-sized businesses build better software for their teams and their clients. So I think kind of honing in on that and just kind of saying, look, we need to be thinking about the customer ever more. There's, as you said, there's so many distractions. There's so much AI fatigue even. So, whatever we do say to them, it needs to be backed up. It needs to be, easy to ingest. It needs to be easy to see through examples, through, clear explanations without, overusing AI hype words, So I think, yeah, that should be our focus for the next year to kind of come back to like if we're gonna have the biggest impact, it should be keeping it simple, keeping it clear, and making sure that the customer actually knows what we're trying to give them, and how that can have an impact on them versus just being another kind of noise
Love it.
data point in the kind of
So good.
space, you know.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. And then lastly, what would be one tip you would give anyone in business with their team, for example, in establishing a quick feedback loop? Because believe it or not, I go into so many businesses and they don't have a feedback loop established.
Mhm.
And I always like to think about a feedback loop with positive intent, like, like clear as kind. But like, what's one tip you would give a leader who hadn't established? I mean, it was the feedback was random. There wasn't really a loop that was able to then, iterate,
Yeah.
test, iterate, test. What would be one tip you would, or a piece of advice you would give them to establish it?
Yeah, you touched on something crucial, and it's kind of like I can't remember exactly what you said, but the intent behind it, you want it to come from a positive place. So,
Yeah, positive
I mean,
intent.
process is going to help a lot, you know. So one thing we do is we have a scorecard, a company scorecard that we review as a kind of leadership team every Monday, and it just goes through the kind of eight most important metrics for us. Um, and if they go down, like we ultimately assign an owner to one of those, and it's their role to kind of bring it to iterate on it for a week or come up with a plan of how we can make that slightly better or back on track, I suppose, for the next week, the next month. Um, but that only works if you trust that person and you assume good intent. That no matter what they do, even if it goes badly, that they were working under the premise that they were trying to do their job as best they possibly could. So it doesn't need to be that sort of process for everything, but if it's creative writing or if it's marketing assets, making sure that before they get published, maybe or before maybe they're even close to being published, that the kind of manager is brought in and that they can review it. And it's not a criticism, it's constructive feedback that will kind of help shape it better, help stamp out any miscommunication in the kind of that arose out of misunderstanding the original
Yeah,
task or the original goal as well earlier, rather than kind of getting to a finished product or a finished piece and then going,
yeah,
that's not what we wanted. Um,
yeah. It
so
it creates
it's so
clarity.
much of it is that positive intent.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. Positive intent, and that's at yes and as well. Improvisation. I always look at feedback loops where
Hmm.
it's ensuring that you've got a feedback loop that happens within 24 hours of, whatever the brief is or whatever the project started,
Exactly. Yeah.
and reviewing something within 24 hours to kind of go, all right, and then
Really
it's
thinking
that
about it.
what's the next loop? Is it in like 3 days or is it in 5 days? But having those clear blocks, frames, if you like, around,
Hmm.
so that you're
Hmm.
not you're not doing something and then waiting 2 weeks, like you say, for the feedback loop to kick in. Been awesome
Yeah,
having a
that's
chat with
great.
you, Darragh. We got quite deep. We went, we were up
I think
here
we
and then
did.
we got into the practicality. I think it's so
Yeah, no,
important.
this is great, Bee.
Yeah, I think it's a really important part of business and, even as part of
Hmm.
scaling, but also as part of being a founder. So, Darragh, thank you
Absolutely.
for a very insightful chat. I've learnt a lot, especially around no code and
Yeah,
all that nothing's ever done it, and I couldn't agree with you more, and I truly do believe it is all around the test iteration, and that's what we do at Bee
absolutely.
Formless. It's the shaping and reshaping. How do we find out more about Noloco, and how do we find out more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So noloco.io, the whole website's there. It's kind of, as we said before, it's a platform to help you build custom software for yourself, and it absolutely falls into what we've been talking about. It allows you to iterate quickly, it allows you to get feedback from your team, from your clients quickly, and you yourself can take action on that and change the processes to kind of actually fit your needs. So noloco.io is the best place to find us, or just Google Noloco, you'll find us. Or you can grab me on LinkedIn. It's just Darragh McKay. I'm sure you'll put a link somewhere. So
Darragh with a
feel free.
GH, by the way, not just Darragh.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
yes, let's be
Yeah.
very clear.
Darragh with a
With a
silent GH.
silent GH. Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
No, no, the Irish names, they get you.
Yeah, no, I got it. It's all good. Thank you, Dara.
You're good.
I'll let you get back to
Thank you.
your Tuesday. Hopefully, the sun is shining in Barcelona. I love that city.
It's coming out. Yeah.
Such a great city. Have a great week,
Likewise.
and yeah, and wishing
You
you all
too,
the
B.
best for to the end of the year and the year ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Likewise, B. Thank you very much.
Take
Bye.
care. Thanks.